So thank you for joining us today for our webinar entitled The Analytics Highway to Customer Loyalty. My name is Bob Laurent, and I'm a Director of Industry Marketing here at Alteryx. And we're also going to be joined by Abhishek Bansal. He is the Associate Director of Customer Analytics at AbsoluteData. In terms of today's agenda, what I'd like to do is start off with a brief summary about customer analytics. But then what we'll do is we're going to spend the majority of our time focused on the results of the survey, which would include the different data sources that different people use when they do customer analytics, as well as some of the benefits, challenges, and some of the areas of analytics investment going forward. We'll also spend a little bit of time on each of these investment areas so we could talk about some different options that you may want to consider. We'll also have some time at the end of the webinar for some Q&A, and we'll take questions. So go ahead and submit your questions now in the Q&A window to your right. So let me start off by saying that in this age of big data, there really is more information than ever before about your customers and prospects. Consider all the data that your organization can harvest from really every interaction that a customer has with your business, including things like transaction details, loyalty card information, device details, even things like customer surveys. And there's also a tremendous amount of external demographic and segmentation data available from a lot of different commercial sources. And now there's the ever-growing array of social media content, things that your customers are generating on sites such as Twitter, Facebook, Foursquare, and Yelp. Unfortunately, when you look at all this data, really in the context of our understanding of the customer, we hear time and time again that, with even all the types of massive storage technology that we have and the processes that we've put into place, the picture of our customers and prospects really isn't getting any clearer than it has been in the past. And, that's really a big problem when you consider that customer insight and customer understanding drive pretty much everything that we need to do and drive all the strategic decisions that we need to make. It's not that organizations don't understand the potential value that they have with data and their prospects. The problem is really how they can utilize it effectively. Honestly, there's lots of reasons why this could be the case, from things like data that's hard to analyze to missing data that's critical to the analyses. Even organizational issues may prevent users from getting the rapid answers to the questions that they have. We have a lot of anecdotal ideas about why many struggle with customer analytics, but we really wanted to get some quantifiable answers. So a few months ago, we got together with AbsoluteData to launch a survey of industry thought leaders and really gather insight into how their organizations use customer analytics, from with a specific focus on things like adoption levels and goals, usage patterns, and even relative maturity, both at a user level, but also at an organizational level. Our end goal was really to identify the tangible benefits that these organizations are receiving, but probably more importantly, determine the various challenges they face day in and day out, so collectively we could figure out how we could address and help them solve them. So as you can see here, we got a really good response from a wide range of individuals who work in many different industries. A real good mix of both B2B and B2C companies. Company sizes also varied pretty widely. So we weren't really biased by any problems that might be unique to small or large companies. Within the companies, we got good representation from all the departments we wanted to hear from. As you might expect, considering the topic that we're talking about today, the two biggest areas where we got the most responses were people that deal with research and analytics, and also in marketing. And based on the registrations that we've seen, I suspect that most of the people that are logged in today fall into one of those two categories. The last demographic question we asked was really specifically about the level of involvement that each individual has with customer analytics. We wanted to make sure we got a really good mix of direct users. These are the people who use analytics day in and day out, and the indirect users. These are the consumers, if you will, of the output of the analytics that other people may have developed. And we feel like we got a really good cross-section of those people as well. So before we get into the results themselves, what we'd like to do now is push out a quick poll so that everybody has a chance to weigh in on these different questions. So we pushed out a poll question for everybody. It's very interactive. If you could take a moment and respond to the question, it should have popped up on the right-hand side. What sources of data does your company use for making customer decisions? These are some of the different sources that we asked people in the poll: point of sale or transaction level detail, customer demographic information, loyalty card data, social media data, customer interaction data. This could take the form of surveys and other types of things, some recorded voice calls, complaint data, and also some primary research data. So if you could take a moment, go ahead and put in your responses, and then we'll review those in a second. Okay. So it looks like you can see in the poll window that just popped up on your screen, we had it's a really good cross-section of different types of data sources that people are using. Point of sale demographic, or point of sale transaction details, customer demographics, customer surveys are all right there as really the highest different sources that all of you use for customer analytics. And that really mirrors very closely to the survey results that we saw, where we got a good mix of responses across all these different things. When you think about traditional data sources such as purchase demographics and segmentation details, plus the transaction details, those things still dominate, as you might expect. But as the survey results showed, and the poll for that matter, we're starting to see the emergence of a bunch of new areas of insight, specifically in the areas of social media, which really isn't surprising when you consider that one post or comment by a well-respected or widely followed customer really has the potential to influence a lot of people to buy, or in some cases to not to buy, and can really have a big impact on your revenue. We also found that a lot more companies are starting to use information that's being captured by customer service departments, specifically things like complaint data and recorded voice calls. One of the fascinating things is you're seeing a lot of companies who are now starting to do real-time voice transcription so that the spoken word can join things like emails and surveys and other written types of feedback to become yet another source of data that can be analyzed. But the bottom line here is that data captured from really every interaction we have with our customers has the potential to provide insight into the behavior, attitudes, and opinions. The next slide that we had is really looking at how many companies use customer analytics today. And this is not surprising. I think a lot more organizations are finding that it's a necessity rather than a convenient commodity for businesses to use customer analytics. They're finding that a lot of customers say things through their data that they need to be listening to. And I think as more and more sources and tools make big data a lot more accessible, I think these numbers are even going to climb. So, having all this data is good, but, the bottom line is it's really only worthwhile if you can actually apply the data in a meaningful way to impact your business. That's why we asked a lot of these companies how they use the insight that they get from customer analytics. And as you might expect, most of the insight is used for, the core sales and marketing activities that many of us deal with on a day-to-day basis. So things like looking at when a prospect becomes first aware of your product or service through all the research and the buying phase that they go through, and then ultimately towards creating loyalty and then to advocacy. As I mentioned, this type of insight is really valuable to companies, and especially to service companies, because if they can identify individual companies who might be at risk, individual customers who might be at risk to churn, The sales and marketing personnel, or maybe some of the retention specialists, can put together some campaigns in an effort to keep that person from discontinuing service. Another area that we found a lot of people using this insight was in the area of making meaningful changes to a product or service, maybe to prioritize what might be included in the next release of software, or maybe to improve the design of a product so that it's more user-friendly. We also saw a lot of people say that they use analytics to determine the optimal distribution channels for their product so that they can really maximize the ability to get the product out in front of the people who might be interested in it and purchasing it in most. So we're going to talk about a case study in a moment that goes into a lot more detail about this last category. But really when you think about the goal of the survey and what we really wanted to get out, we really wanted to see if there were any major challenges that all these organizations were facing. And fortunately or unfortunately, we did find those challenges. That's where we're going to spend the bulk of our time on the rest of the survey results, discussing really what these challenges are, and then maybe some ways that we can overcome them as an industry. So here's the first challenge, and I'll let Abhishek speak to this one in the context of Absolute Data.
Thanks, Bob. So the first challenge that our survey respondents outlined was, essentially getting the right data. And this really entails two things. Number one, ensuring that organizations access the right and accurate data sources, be they be unstructured or structured, to really enable a comprehensive data repository in the first place. And secondly, to combine these structured and unstructured data sources using efficient tools to enable an advanced predictive analytics strategy to be deployed. So if you really look at it, the two things, number one, it's important to understand the unique business situation of a client and to design a customized data warehouse strategy to capture the information that's required to enable the holistic analytics strategy that is required in that particular client situation, and to put the systems in place to capture and structure this data. And with the advent of new data sources such as social media, voice data, and even video data in some commercial applications, the volumes of unstructured data has exploded. And it's going through the roof, and it's only on its way up. So as such, organizations are struggling with the integration of these unstructured data sources with the traditional sources of data using existing tools and techniques. It simply does not work. Bob, over to you.
Thanks. To this I would just add, it's funny, when we talk to some customers about the old days, the pre-Alteryx days of their data blending or data analytics projects, it's not uncommon to hear a lot of people talk about how they would start on a Friday night with some sort of a project of data blending and cross their fingers and hope that when they come in on Monday morning that the answers that they're looking for, the data that they're trying to get, was complete and blended together. In most of the cases, or a lot of cases, you find out that something happened over the weekend and they come in and the whole entire project is cratered. So this clearly the volume and different types of data are something that a lot of people struggle with on a day-to-day basis. So at this point, we're going to talk about a couple of case studies where people have had just such a challenge. And the first one that we're going to talk about is VF Corporation. Now, you're probably familiar with VF through some of the very familiar brands that you see there on the screen, such as North Face, Nautica, Lee, Wrangler, Majestic, those type of brands. In 2009, VF set out with do a massive undertaking with all their retail partners to really improve their ability to get the right products to the right retailers at the right time. And this is, as you might imagine, no small feat because you're dealing with upwards of 10,000 different retail locations and over 100,000 different SKUs across all these different brands. that meant crunching, large sums of data very quickly. And they soon found out that a lot of the existing software solutions that they were using just really weren't scalable for a company the size that VF had become. The other problem really wasn't related to volume at all, but the fact that different retailers all use different data formats. And the challenge was being able to somehow blend all these different data sources together before they could even consider doing any types of analytics. So the goal, the result was, VF moved from these mix of different software solutions to a single platform which was optimized for data blending, predictive analytics, and reporting. And they were able to really combine all the different data that they had from each individual retailer so they could analyze sales by category and style and even size for each predefined market. The end result was that they were able to meet all their stated goals, but they were also able to really drive meaningful improvements in sales and significantly reduce their merchandise markdown rates. Abhishek, let me let you speak to one of yours.
Thanks, Bob. So this case study is for a retail client where AbsoluteData had the opportunity to partner with the client to create a single customer view for its client base, combining again various different data sources. And the challenge here was essentially at three levels. AbsoluteData consultants worked with the client stakeholders to create a customer data warehouse. We consulted and recommended what data was really required to solve the analytics needs of the client, what data should be captured and stored, and for what duration and what depth, and so on and so forth. We then helped the client to build an ETL layer to actually capture the data from the relevant systems, which included structured in-house systems, the IT systems that the client was using to manage their business, and also unstructured systems such as social media feeds and external websites for primary data, and bring it all together into a single repository. We also helped to bring in expertise on new tools which were able to handle the large volumes of data that are associated, especially with the unstructured data sources, to help blend them with the traditional data sources, the customer demographics and the point of sales and so on. And finally, we were able to deploy some advanced text matching and fuzzy logic algorithms to actually make sure that when we are blending the two data sources, the structured and the unstructured data sources, that we are able to create a true picture of a customer view, which can be then deployed for marketing analytics and other sort of general purpose analytics purposes. So post creation of the single customer view, we enabled the deployment of advanced analytics in the client ecosystem to deliver the business benefits and the bottom line impact. Bob, could we move over to the next slide? Thank
Okay.
you.
So
the second sorry. Yeah.
So the second challenge really that we found was that it really had to do with the user's ability to actually do something with the data. What we found that was within many companies, the data that was needed for customer analytics would spread across a lot of disparate systems. And the traditional way to unify data usually means a typical long and complicated IT project with maybe a detailed scope of work and multiple revisions to negotiate back and forth. And unfortunately, what we found was that a lot of people felt that by the time they get answers to the questions that they posed, the market had changed, and the question, let alone the answer, was no longer relevant. So in response to the limited access to IT resources and the deadlines that many of us have to deal with on a day-to-day basis, a lot of users have been turning to attempt to really do their own analytics. Let's face it, right? At one point or another, we've all tried to use Excel to do some things that, frankly, it really wasn't designed to do. Maybe as a spreadsheet to do some basic analyses, it's great. But when you consider all of the data volume and the wide variety of different data sources, is, many of us know you quickly hit a wall using Excel. I don't want to just pick on Excel because, literally there are hundreds of really specialized tools out there that are used to accomplish some specific tasks such as data blending, data cleansing, analytics, maybe some reporting. But the problem is that in order to get the answers you need, you literally have to pass data back and forth between all these different tools, which makes things really complex and in some cases put the validity of your analysis at risk. The other problem that a lot of people reported was that, and some of the feedback that we've gotten in talking with our clients, is a lot of the tools that are out there really aren't designed for mere mortals like us to use. They require things like complex coding, and they have very steep learning curves, which is why a lot of these tools rarely make it out of the IT department, where most of the users have advanced PhDs in things like mathematics or statistics. So the way we looked at the problem, and clearly the way that we think this challenge can be overcome, is by making real analytics tools much easier to use and more accessible to people that sit in the line of business. These are the people who deal with the business problems day in and day out. That way, then, by doing that, it focuses the IT department on the things that they do best, things like data collection and data access, data security, and it allows people with the industry knowledge and skills to really focus on getting the insight from the data. Abhishek, I believe you had a case study to discuss.
Thanks, Bob. Actually, just to summarize what Bob talked about, when we are working in client situations, we increasingly see essentially three types of skill sets that are being asked for in client situations. The first one being an analytics technologist, a professional who is skilled in delivering insights through querying of data. So this is an individual who is skilled at manipulation of data and is able to ask intelligent questions from the data and get some relevant insights out of it. The second profile is really of an analytics scientist, a professional who is skilled in the usage of predictive analytics and advanced statistics to then add value to specific business problems or to specific analytic situations. And finally, the third profile that we see being deployed on analytics projects is of a business consultant, who is a professional who understands a client's business, who understands the domain, the vertical, and who can help design the analytics strategy for any given business problem. So as we see the analytics industry maturing, we see more specialization of the skill sets to achieve a scalable delivery model. The pursuit of a single superhuman sort of a person, if it exists, who can perform all three tasks equally well, is probably over. So Bob, could you just move over to the case study? Yeah, thank you. So this is a case study that we put together from one of our client situations. And the client is a $8 billion revenue hospitality major. And the client analytics director commented when we started the engagement, where do I get trained statisticians who understand my business and can make business decisions? And obviously, these skills are not available in the market easily. The market is moving towards specialized skill sets. And as you can see from the journey that we plotted for our client, we started with a very focused mandate, wherein the client requirement was focused towards data exploration and ad hoc analysis. And we deployed a team of technologists who were skilled at understanding the data, who were skilled at manipulating the data, and who were able to answer the simple questions that were coming their way. As the client relationship matured, they started asking for more predictive analytics, more advanced analytics, and hence, in addition to the technologists, we deployed a team of analytics scientists who were able to work together as a team and then deliver statistically driven solutions or predictive analytics solutions to client problems, such as customer segmentation, attrition models, response models, and so on and so forth. And finally, moving into 2013, our people were so embedded within the client business that the client senior management was actually relying on Absolute Data resources to answer some of the most critical business problems that they had. As such, they were looking for Absolute Data resources to add value to their, let's say, their annual forecasting, business forecasting exercise and business planning exercise. So at that stage, we brought in the business consultants who sat alongside the technologists and the scientists and who were able to bring in the business knowledge, the domain and the industry knowledge, and were able to guide the technologists and the scientists to ask the right questions of the data and to then structure the analysis in a way that would answer the client's business problem more holistically. So in summary, in what we see in client situations today is that we typically end up deploying a diagnostic framework basis which we decide the mix and quantum of skill sets that need to be provided to the client at various stages of their analytical journey. Bob, over to you.
Here's the third challenge. Why don't you take this one, Abhishek?
Oh, thanks. So moving on, the last challenge that our survey respondents outlined was the difficulty in defining and calculating return on investment on their analytics dollars. So this is an interesting one. If you look at the survey response, a majority of our clients or the survey respondents either did not know what their analytics ROI was, or they felt that it was less than or equal to the investment that they had made. So when we did some research and we work with our clients internally as well, we found that companies that adopted data-driven decision-making achieved a 5 to 6% higher productivity. A 2011 nucleus research of 60 analytics-related ROI case studies found that for every dollar invested in business intelligence and predictive analytics, organizations get back an average of about $10.50. So this is the outcome of an actual research that was conducted within a subset of organizations. And what we took out of this snippet of fact was that an organization needs to carefully plot its analytics journey to derive the maximum benefit. A customized approach is required based on the current analytics maturity of the organization and their current analytics capabilities. Bob, would you like to add something to this?
No, I think let's do this. Let's transition right into maybe some case studies. I think that will illustrate some of the points that you just made. I think they were really valuable. I'll talk about one of our customers first. This is Southern States Cooperative. They're one of our nation's largest farmer-owned cooperatives. They're owned by more than 300,000 different farmers across the U.S. Southern States purchases, manufactures, processes things like feed, seed, fertilizer, farm supplies, fuel. It's really everything that today's modern farmer requires. They have really strong customer loyalty and very high brand recognition with agriculture pros across the U.S. And they serve about 1,200 different retail locations across 23 states. Southern States does a lot of business through catalogs that they mail out to customers and prospects throughout the course of the year. As you might imagine, this really represents a significant cost to their business. So in an ideal world, they want to send catalogs only to prospects, not to customers who would have purchased the promoted products anyway. So a few years ago, what Southern States did was they set out to optimize their distribution process using analytics. They gave their line of business users access to analytic tools so that they could do all their own analytics without having to tax any of the existing IT resources. These line of business users were able to combine all the different data that they needed from the various departments and data warehouse, integrate things like point of sale data, loyalty program information, inventory levels, even projected insight about customer interests, activities, and opinions, so they could take maybe some regional differences into account. The end result was that by focusing on just the right customers for these targeted mailings, they were able to reduce the number of catalogs they mailed by 63%, okay, while improving response rate by 34%. So you think about that for a second, right? They had less mailings, but more responses. And the end result was they saw a gross margin increase, less the cost of their mailings, of about $200,000 annually. So pretty powerful stuff, and a good way to justify the analytics investment that they had made. Abhishek, I'll hand this to you. I think you had one about a satellite TV provider in Asia.
Yes, Bob, thanks. So this is a case study for the work that AbsoluteData performed for Asia's leading satellite TV provider. So as you can see, when we got involved, the client requirement was really to plot out their complete customer analytics journey, which we implemented starting from a basic customer segmentation, customer lifetime value models, then moving on to attrition prediction, payment models, pricing models, response models, and so on. So again, from an analytics standpoint, covering the entire gamut of solutions that can be implemented in a customer and marketing analytics scenario. From an ROI perspective, the way we measured and demonstrated the value of the firm's investment was by measuring the business impact of the deployment of these analytic solutions. So for example, and as Bob also mentioned in his case study, we also found that by implementing better response models and better prediction models, we were able to reduce the campaign costs by 25%, and we were able to deliver a 10% increase in campaign response rates. Now, the firm had about a 14 million customer base across Asia Pacific. So the savings in the mailing volumes, if you look at the absolute dollars, is probably in several $1 million a year. We were also able to double their a la carte sales and were able to deliver a 30% increase in revenue per user, and so on. So the point being that we delivered an analytics strategy, an analytics solution, which was customized to the client's need. It was tailored to their requirements. It was implemented in their ecosystem and was measured diligently across the specific points of business impacts to then demonstrate the value of it to their revenue and to their bottom line. Bob, over to you.
Okay. So just to summarize, here are the different challenges and the recommendations we put together. And if you want to summarize them, it really boils down to 3 different areas. Challenge number 1 was getting access to the data and really putting the data to use. The second challenge was solving giving the ability for users to actually do something with the data and giving them the right tools to do that. And then the third challenge was really more along the lines of being able to measure and put measures into place to justify your investment in analytics, both from a technology standpoint as well as other variables that go into your overall cost of analytics. So at this point, we want to go ahead and push out our second poll question. And this has to do with your level of investment in 3 specific areas. Analytics technology, in terms of analytics training and additional headcount, as well as in any external resources that you would be investing in. And we'd like to know what your level of investment is. So if you go ahead on the right-hand side and you want to indicate whether you think you're, compared to last year, whether you think your company will be investing more, less, or about the same in each of these 3 specific areas. We'll go ahead and review the results in just a moment. So when you look at the results, I mean, it fairly mirrors what we saw in the survey, Definitely, you're seeing a lot more investment in terms of technology. People are spending more and more on analytics technologies. We're going to talk about that in some different areas in a second. We're seeing more people investing in analytics training and additional headcount. Also, the number of people keeping that level of spend about the same. And then we're also seeing, again, a bigger investment in things like external resources. 22% of you saying that you're planning on spending more this year than you did last year. And I think that's very encouraging. It's definitely very similar to what we saw as the results of the survey that we did, where in this case, for example, 95% of the people we surveyed said that they're planning on spending more on analytics technology than they did last year. And then of those 95%, the average increase in spend was about 21% over what they did last year. Consequently, those that said that they're planning on decreasing their spend were only doing so at a rate of about 10%. That's how you would interpret the numbers for people and external resources as well. So clearly, that's great news, and honestly, I think it's sort of a necessary action, especially as the volume and variety of big data is growing, and it's going to continue to grow at leaps and bounds. So at this point, Abhishek and I are going to talk about some of the different ways and opportunities for investment. And the first thing we're going to talk about is technology. I'm going to spend a little time talking about who Alteryx is, just so you can get a sense of what analytics technology is able to do right now with your big data and what you're collecting about customers. So Alteryx is both the name of our product as well as our overall company name. We're a Windows-based software platform that's designed to be installed by the individual user, the person who sits in the line of business, so that they can do all their own analytics. We're fortunate enough to have about 250 different customers, many of which are on the Fortune 500. And we have a very passionate user base of about 200,000 individual users who, as I like to say, together we're really leading the consumerization of big data analytics and really helping these people take their big data and turn it into valuable insight that they can use to make measurable improvements in their business. So the first step in how that is accomplished, here's a view of what we call the designer desktop. And this is where everything gets started, where you set up connectors to all of the different types of data that you have out there. That could be things like anything as small as an Excel spreadsheet all the way up to large data warehouses and Teradata and business support systems, operational support systems. Increasingly, that could be things like device data. So it could be set-top box data, it could be data coming from thermostats or cell phones, things of that nature. Of course, you also need to integrate the things like cloud data. So connections into your marketing automation systems like Marketo or Eloqua, or your CRM systems like Salesforce or Amazon S3, as well as social media data. So, as I mentioned, these are becoming very valuable sources of insight about customer sentiment. And all you need to do is you use the drag and drop tools within Alteryx to combine all the data. Join that on some common fields so that you can start to take some of these disparate data sources and then really join them together so you can enrich the data and see it across all these different types of data sources that come in. If you want to go ahead and look at it in terms of a map and give it a spatial component, that's where a partnership with TomTom comes in, so that you can take all the different data and give it a latitude or longitude and really look at it in the context of a map. And then the last piece is you can also enrich that data with a number of third-party data sources that we bundle within the product. So we have partnerships with companies like Experian for consumer-level insight, as well as D&B on the business side. We also have relationships with industry-specific data So for example, geo results, if you're in the telecommunications industry and want to integrate data, say from cell phones or central offices and things like that that are unique to the industry. So once you create all of those different and blend all the different data sources together, the real magic starts to happen when you develop what's called an analytic workflow. This is where you can apply some of the behavioral analysis tools and some of the spatial analytics so that you can start to look at and say, okay, how far are people from my different retail stores? What's the drive times between all these different places? And then also bring in some of the predictive analytics tools. We bundle the R statistical programming language within Alteryx so that people can start to take the data and no longer look at what happened in the past. You can do that, of course, but the value starts to come in when you're able to take that insight and to predict what people are going to do in the future. When will somebody buy? What will they buy? Where will they buy it? Those are the type of things that the predictive analytics tools within Alteryx allow you to accomplish. And then finally, once you get that insight, you have to do something with it. So for many customers, that means you output it into some form. It could be back into an Excel spreadsheet, or maybe pushed out into another data warehouse, or in some cases it could be to analyze it with a visualization tool like Tableau. We just announced a version of Alteryx yesterday that's optimized specifically for visualizations. You can also produce a number of different reports, so things like reports and charts and maps and emails can all be done within Alteryx, so you're not having to jump and pass data back and forth between different systems. And then lastly, sort of the secret sauce here of Alteryx is the ability to publish analytics to the cloud. And the way that works is we created what's called the Alteryx Analytics Gallery. This is hopefully very familiar to people, where it's very similar in concept to the app stores that we're all used to dealing with our mobile devices. Being able to go in and browse a public gallery of different applications that are available to you so that you can run analytics, and then also dig into some of the collections that were shared with you, maybe by your data analysts within your organization, so that you can run very specific queries on just your data, okay, and then get insight. So if you're a user of this, maybe you're not a developer of analytic workflows, all you would need to do is log into the gallery. You'll make a bunch of selections. Maybe if you're a salesperson, you want to look at your sales territory, or if you're an engineer, maybe you're looking at a specific area of responsibility that you have. Make a bunch of selections, hit run, and you'll get the same reports and charts and graphs that the analyst would get, but without having to deal with all the underlying analytics development work that went into creating all these different applications. In terms of people, because now these type of capabilities are being put into the hands of people in the line of business, we're finding that it's really creating a new breed of user, one that we call a data artisan. This is really somebody who has the capabilities of a data scientist, the ones in the IT departments, but since they sit in the line of business, these are people who are conversant in the different types of data, but it also allows them to use their creative side so that they can develop these types of applications and really drive value for people that are within the line of business. And they don't have to rely on IT staff in order to get the rapid answers that they need. We're also seeing a large investment in external resources, I believe, and Abhishek is going to cover that for you.
Thanks, Bob. So Absolute Data is a specialized analytics and research firm that was founded in 2001. We have a global delivery footprint with offices in US, UK, Dubai, Singapore, and supported by a delivery center based in India. The thing that differentiates us from our competitors and peers in the market is that our organizational DNA has arisen from our leadership's experience across leading global consulting firms, owing to which we are able to work collaboratively with our clients and as thought partners with them to really understand their business problems and to provide analytic solutions or data-driven solutions to address those problems. Moving to the next slide. So Absolute Data provides support across primarily 5 service pillars. Analytics being the first pillar, covering all aspects of customer and marketing analytics, which includes our support across the 3 skill sets which I spoke about earlier, which is the analytics technologist, the analytics scientist, and the business consultants. Data visualization and reporting being the second pillar, we specialize in providing support across data visualization tools such as ClickView, Excelsius, Cognos, Excel, and so on. In addition to providing tool-based support, we also provide consulting in terms of in helping the organizations decide what are the right KPIs for them. What are the metrics that they should be tracking to measure the success of their departments or for the organization as a whole. So it's not just about the visualization aspect, but also to help the organization understand what they should be tracking and what are the right metrics that need to be tracked. The third pillar being market research, which focuses on our ability on collation and analysis of primary data. Business research focuses on services to enhance data quality through secondary research. So in today's world, data sources are not perfect. There are gaps in data, and business research is the service that helps clients to improve the quality of data by looking at either paid or freely available data sources on the internet. And finally, our big data capability, which encompasses all the analytics services surrounding the emerging big data sources such as social media, text analytics, video analytics, and so on. Moving on. Absolute Data has worked with a range of Fortune 1000 clients across various sectors with a kind of a specialization in retail, hospitality, consumer product goods, digital, and consulting. So this is just a snapshot of the kind of projects and the kind of clients that we have worked with. And moving on, some of the esteemed clients that we have had the opportunity to serve and to grow our relationship with. Bob, over to you.
Okay. So to really kind of summarize, before we go into the Q&A, I really feel like a new analytics paradigm has emerged. We've seen a lot of technology changes in the last few years that have really overcome a lot of the data challenges. Allows users within the line of business to blend all the different types of data sources and what we feel is a very straightforward workflow type format without having to deal with complex coding, which is very typical of previous generation type analytics platforms that are out there. And that really helps overcome a lot of the second challenges, which is some of the user challenges that are out there, and really giving line of business people the tools to do their own analytics. And they don't have to be PhDs with in mathematics and statistics in order to actually get insight from their data. And then, as Abhishek has spoken to with a number of case studies and with his most recent slides, it's really helpful to have organizations really sit down and plot a analytics journey, figure out what they're trying to solve with analytics, and put the right steps in place to get there, not only to help them achieve what they're trying to do, but then also give them the right metrics to look back on so that they can measure the ROI and get the maximum benefit out of what they're trying to do. I just want to take a moment before we jump into the Q&A and thank everybody for participating in today's webinar. All of you are going to get a copy of a new white paper that we have worked on with Absolute Data. This is going to go into detail about the survey results specifically, but probably more importantly, it's going to give you some ideas that you can put into practice within your organizations on how you can drive critical improvements in revenue, customer retention, operational efficiency, and as well as some brand loyalty. So at this point, Ken, I'll hand it over to you. I think I've seen a number of questions come in. If you want to, we can spend a little bit of time taking some questions here at the end.
Excellent. Yeah, there's been several. If you have any questions, feel free to key them into the Q&A box there, and we'll be happy to address them. If we'll get to as many as we can during this, and then we'll get back to you directly afterwards. This first one here for you, Bob. Were there any significant differences between the results for B2C companies versus B2B companies?
Thanks, Ken. That's a really good question. In general, the users at B2B companies reported a higher proficiency with analytics. And if you think about it, that's probably not surprising, considering that in general their marketing efforts have traditionally been more data-driven. In terms of data sources, B2B companies have a few that B2B companies don't have a whole lot of, things like transaction data, loyalty card data, customer service call data. But in general, overall, the three challenges that we uncovered really apply equally to B2C as well as B2B companies.
Another question here. How do you determine what should be an organization's analytical journey? Abhishek, would you like to take that?
Yes, Ken, thanks. Well, at Absolute Data, we believe there are 8 key pillars of an analytics-driven organization. And through our proprietary diagnostic framework, which I mentioned earlier, we evaluate an organization's existing analytics maturity using 3 main steps. We conduct sessions with 3 types of stakeholders. We go and meet the analytic creators, the consumers, and the sponsors within the organization. We create a scorecard on the key pillars, and then incorporating 2 other key metrics, which is number 1, leadership vision and objectives of the organization, and what do they see the analytics vision and the analytics end goal. And finally, benchmarking the current capabilities of the organization against the leading analytics-driven organizations in that vertical and that sector. So that, in a holistic manner, is the way or the outcome of the diagnostic framework would automatically tell us at what stage of maturity that an organization is and what would be the next steps in their analytics journey.
Excellent. Another question. Hey, why don't you take this one, Bob? I see the value in how analytics can help me get a better understanding of the customer, but what is the best way to get started?
Well, that's a really good question. I would say in general, from talking to the customers that have been successful, I would say start with a very specific business problem and then build out an analytic workflow to help address that problem. Don't try to boil the ocean. So if you have an e-commerce site, maybe you start with some clickstream data, combine it with some demographic and segmentation information to try to figure out what the golden path is to a purchase. Or maybe if you're a communication service provider, look at some of the customer support data, combine that with things like billing history, maybe some usage data, and start to predict which of the high-value customers might be at risk to churn. We have a product on our website you can download called Alteryx Project Edition, where you can start to do your own analyses yourself. It's a free version available for the extent of a project so that you can play with analytics using your own data and get a really good sense of the type of capabilities that are out there right now. So bottom line is I would say the recommendation is start small, get value where you can go ahead and demonstrate that to senior management, and then go and move on from there.
Great. Seeing that we're at the top of the hour, let me take just one more question here. How is Absolute Data different from other analytics firms?
Right. I did discuss one of the differentiating factors in one of my earlier slides. But essentially, I think we are different from other analytics firms in 4 key areas. The first being our culture, which we define using one word, impaction, which is really creating business impact through actionable analytical solutions. We help our clients realize quantifiable ROI for each analytics dollar spent. The second, as I discussed earlier, was our consultative mindset, which is driven by the organization's leadership joining from leading global consulting firms, which really creates a DNA which allows us to work collaboratively and as thought partners with our clients. The third being the ability for Absolute Data to have an in-house research and business intelligence practice that works in coordination with analytics, allowing us to provide non-analytics insights and intuitive insights using non-traditional data sources such as primary data sources and so on. So not a lot of firms across the globe have in-house research and analytics division which can actually combine the two and deliver value to a client problem. And finally, our focus on solutions and not tools. While a lot of analytics firms focus on tools, we maintain that tools are only enablers. And we have spent our time and energy on building numerous proprietary frameworks over time and continue to use those frameworks in the industry. We give ourselves the platform and a tool-agnostic ecosystem which allows us to be flexible across different client scenarios. So these would be the 4 sort of parameters in which I would say we differentiate ourselves from our competitors and peers in the market.
Excellent, thank you. This concludes our question and answer session. On behalf of the speakers, I'd like to thank all of you for attending our webcast today, and have a great day.